Okay, so welcome to week 3. This week we're going to start working on the final draft of the annotated bibliography, and so I'm going to walk you through the assignments for this week. The announcements, make sure you double check this, make sure you're getting all the assignments done. I'm pretty sure everybody turned in what they were missing. Then also make sure you pay attention to the grading weights. That's found on page 2 of the syllabus. It just breaks down writing project 1, 2, 3, the discussions, engagement, and things like that into certain weights. So everything's weighted, which I explained here. Make sure if you have any questions about that, you let me know. But first things first, click on course content, and by the time you see this video, this will be lit up like the week 1 and week 2. We're currently in week 2, is the 27th. I'm recording this video on Wednesday, and we will start on Sunday of week 3. So nonetheless, when Sunday rolls around, you'll click on week 3, or excuse me, when Monday rolls around, because it doesn't open for you until Sunday at midnight. When week 3 rolls around, you click on this, week 3, February 1st through 7th. And the first thing you're going to want to do is take a look at the rubric. The rubric's broken down into 5 parts, but what I've done with this one is I've changed it a little bit. This is the rubric you'll be using for all of your essays, that I'll be using to grade all of your essays. It's based out of 50 points. If you get perfect on everything, on focus, content, organization, expression, and mechanics, you can get up to 10 points. And if you get 10 points in each of them, that's 50 points, and I'll double that grade to make it out of 100 points. So, you notice this one has some blanked out items, namely expression and focus. Focus is what I'm using to grade your thesis, and with the annotated bibliography you don't actually have a thesis, so I've taken that part out. Also is expression, to where you've given voice and sentence structure to your essay, which is still applicable to the annotated bibliography because you're summarizing, but you don't get a whole lot of opportunity to input a voice. And voice, that's where the writing sounds like the author. It should still maintain an academic and professional persona, but you should be able to have some sort of degree of personality in your writing, and that's graded by expression. But since you're only reviewing articles this week for your final draft, there's not a whole lot of expression and voice that goes into that. Granted, I can still grade you on sentence structure, but that for this week will fall under mechanics, which, as you can see here, is grammar, mechanics, punctuation, spelling, and then varied sentences. The varied sentences, what that means is that you don't just keep using simple sentences. I went to the store, and then I bought some bread, and then I went home, and now I'm sitting at home. So it's those very, if all of your sentences are the same length, it makes it have that monotone sort of sound to it. And so that's why variation in sentence length is important. Organization, it's how well did you organize your essay. Did you follow the template? And if you didn't follow the template, is it easy for me to understand and follow based on how you did organize it? And then content, that's how well you did at summarizing, assessing, and evaluating or reflecting on each source that you used. So again, that's out of 10 points. You can kind of see what you would need to do to get 10 versus 8 versus 6 versus 4. Everybody's pretty well going to stay within the 4 to 6, even if you just turn something in. If you start actually putting some thought into it, then you'll get closer to the 6 to the 8. And if you do really well, then you'll get between the 8 and the 10. Average, I would say most people usually turn in about an 8. So that's what we're working on that's how I'm going to be grading it this week when you turn in your final draft. Now, after you've reviewed that rubric, take a look at what peer review is, because that's what we're really doing this week before you turn in your final draft. You've already turned in your rough draft, and you turn it into a discussion board. Everyone can see your rough draft, and so later on this week we'll be going back into that, and I'll explain it in just a second. But what we're doing when we go back in and we look at other people's papers is peer review, and what that is for is you're looking through their essay and you're looking for things that you can change based on their content. Namely, with the annotated bibliography, you're going to be focusing on things that maybe you just don't understand about what they're writing. But nonetheless, watch these 2 videos. What is peer review? The college paper revision process. We're not actually writing an essay, which is focusing on an essay, but a lot of the principles still apply here. So watch this video as well. And then once you're done, take a look at these peer review guidelines. These are what we're going to be using to review other people's papers. Now, granted, a lot of these things may not apply. For instance, you don't have a thesis in the annotated bibliography, so you can pretty much throw 1, A, B, and C out the window. Paragraphing might be applicable. You don't really have a hook because that's the first part in writing an essay, but we're not writing an essay. So some of these questions, like I said, don't apply. But what does apply specifically is 14 and 15. In writing project 1, does the author effectively utilize sources, summarize, analyze, and reflect? So does the author do all 4 of those things? Also, how well do you understand their choice and sources, their summary, their analysis, and their reflection? Is it clear how the sources will be used in the causal argument? So primarily I want you to focus on those 2 questions when you're doing peer reviews for other people. Now let me show you what I'm talking about. After you have looked at the rubric, watched both videos, and looked at the peer review guidelines that I just showed you, go back into the discussion board where the annotated bibliography rough draft was, where you submitted your rough draft. You'll click on that. Now I don't know, it looks like Mary put in 1, so you can take a look at that one. You click on it, you read it, so you can open up their file, take a look at it. Oh, this is my dissertation. Take a look at their file, and based on their summary, analysis, and reflection, answer those peer review guidelines. So have those guidelines open and ask yourself a few questions, reply back to them with 2 pieces of criticism, basically saying, here's an area where you can do better, and this is how I would do better. This is how I would do it better if I was you. So you can't come in and just say, good job, because that doesn't really give them anything to go off of. What is important is that you come in and you say, maybe if you read their analysis paragraph, you might say, I didn't quite understand the analysis paragraph. If you want to make it more clear, do this and help the reader understand it that way. Once you've done that, just reply to them and say, provide your feedback. We could say something like, your assessment paragraph in the first citation was good, but I was a little confused about whatever, XYZ. In order to make this more clear, I would, and then go on to explain how you would make it more clear, or make it a little bit more understandable. Or whatever it is that you suggest. But the thing is that you have to make at least, let's see, let me go back to make sure I'm not telling you wrong. What did I say here? At least one piece, provide one student with constructive criticism. So just as one, just provide them with one piece of feedback. So you can answer 14A or 15A from the peer review guidelines. So again, if you look at those, come down here. If you wanted to read Marriage, you could come down, look at number 14. How well does the writer incorporate, how well is the writer's issue incorporated in the essay? Do they effectively utilize sources, summarize and analyze and reflect? So you come back and you might number it 14A. In your annotated bibliography, I felt like your sources were utilized effectively, but I didn't quite understand the summary for article number 1 or article number 2, and provide them some feedback. Once you've done that, you'll be able to come back here to the discussion board, find your name, click on it, and find the feedback below where your name is. So you may not have feedback right away, but everyone needs to have feedback provided to someone by the 3rd. So we'll start this on Monday. You'll have Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday to just log in, read someone else's paper, and then provide them with one piece of feedback. Now, if you log in here, and say like you logged into Marriage here, and they already had one piece of criticism or a suggestion, try to find someone that doesn't, because if everyone does one other person, and it's a different person, not everybody doesn't just crowd in on Merit and just give piece of feedback to them. Give everyone feedback. If you find someone that already has feedback, don't go to that person. Go to somebody else that doesn't have feedback. That way everybody can get feedback. Once you find that you've been given feedback, so if Merit comes in and is like, okay, cool, someone replied to mine, come in here, see what they replied to, now you can go back to your paper and you make changes to your rough draft based on what they said. Of course, you're the author. If you don't like their suggestion, then you don't have to do it. But they are the reader, and from an authentic perspective, they are much like the readers that will pick up your annotated bibliography everywhere else in the world. So if any other reader were to pick it up, your peers are much like those people because they don't really know a whole lot about your subject, most likely, and so that's what you're here to do is enlighten them. So once you've logged back in after the 3rd of February, so after next Wednesday, and maybe you log in on the 4th, you find that someone's giving you feedback, you go into your paper and you make changes. Once you make those changes, you come down to the annotated bibliography final draft, you click on it, and you submit your final draft here. Now the thing is that one thing that's kind of unique about my class is that I don't give feedback on the rough draft because I want people to be able to work with each other and figure out errors or ways to make your paper better by using your resources. And a lot of times, 90% of the time, you're not going to have a writing professor as one of your resources. You can use your tutoring, you can use the writing center, but most of the time, you're not going to be able to go to, you won't be able to come back to me and say, hey, can you look at my paper, because that may not be available. Or any other writing professor that may not be available, so you need to be able to use your resources. In this case, and in all cases, you'll always have peers or colleagues that you can kind of run it by. So that's what we're trying to kind of practice here, because this will really become important when we get into the writing of the essays. You'll have the same idea. You'll turn in a rough draft of an essay. You'll have your peers to provide you feedback based on those discussion review guidelines, those questions I provided you. And based on what your peers say, you have to develop a better essay. And then, of course, I'll give you feedback on the final draft, and you can use the feedback from that draft to make the next essay better, the next writing project better. But it becomes a little bit difficult because most people are used to getting feedback from the rough draft. In this case, I want to give you the opportunity to make some errors. You're not going to lose points for every single error you make. You'll see that whenever you get your feedback, whenever you get your grade back, I should say. But you'll probably miss some things, but mostly you'll be able to take away from that is how to make your next essay better. But other than that, that's all we're doing this week. So big thing, just review the first 4, the 2 videos, the rubric, and the peer review guidelines. You review those, take a look at them, and then come down to the annotated bibliography, give someone some feedback, wait for someone to give you feedback, excuse me, and then on the 4th, give them make your change, see what feedback they've given you, make the changes to your paper, and then turn in your final draft. The final draft is then due, I can't see here, we're starting this on Monday. The feedback for other people is due on the 3rd, and then you have Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday until midnight to make changes to your rough draft, and then turn it in as a final draft. So other than that, that's all we're doing this week. Again, check out week 3, start there, and that's where you find everything. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me via email, text, or phone call, or even Skype if you use that, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. And other than that, just let me know if you need anything else, and I'll be here to help. Other than that, have a good week.